Hey, hey, hey. This is the Musician's Personal Development Podcast. Welcome back. I am CC Bass.
And I am Wil Cameron.
And we are two seasoned musicians that are here to bring you the best tips to help you get to your best musician self. And today's show, we're going to talk about preparation. I
Preparation.
love this topic. I love this topic. This can go in so many different ways. But Wil, why don't you tell them more about this topic?
So we're going to talk about this. I'll start by talking about the main reasons why. So we have to have this. We're musicians. We play our instruments and stuff. But there's a certain order to that goes along with that. Three reasons. One, preparation simplifies your life. There's a wellness component to being prepared. If you're not running around with your hair on fire and stressed out, you're feeling better about things. Your bandmates, your family's going to feel better about that. You're not running around the house before you leave. So simplicity is one. Two, professionalism. This is about being professional. So having good organizational chops goes along with having good musician chops. And by doing that, and people see that, that's evidence to potential employers that you're serious about your craft. So professionalism is important, and also confidence. Now you remember, Cece, we talked about jitters, performance jitters. Remember, talked about that. We talked about fear. We talked about having principles. The confidence that you get from being prepared, it helps to make a lot of that stuff go away, because you can focus squarely on music. If you're not worried about, oh, did I lock the door? Oh, I've got to do this. Oh, I forgot to make a phone call. Simplicity, professionalism, confidence lets you focus on the music and be your best musician self. So that's why those things are important.
Right, right. And if you're listening to this and you're saying, well, preparation, well, that's obvious. You might say that, but I can't tell you a countless amount of times where I show up on gigs or, up to some kind of musical project job, and there's a lack of preparation. There's always like somebody that's that's
Yeah.
that's that's not doing their part or something, and we're kind of at the mercy of the weakest link, and
We know
so
that
yes.
person. Yes, we know that person. We won't name names. I forgot my tablet. Does anybody have an extra A string? Right? It's always something. Be
Right,
set
right,
up
right.
5:30. It's like that person's creeping in. They didn't learn the song, so they're noodling between songs, trying to figure out, how do we play this in this key.
That's
We
a
all
big
know,
one.
we've seen that, right? So
Yes.
if you haven't seen that, you don't want to be that person. You do not want to be that person. So that's a challenge for us. And as musicians, it kind of goes against our creativity to be organized, because we want to be free, right?
Right,
So
absolutely.
as we go through this, I want us to talk about, it would be good for you to share your experiences. So like right now, so let's say we get that call. Somebody says, hey, we got this major project. You're going to make a ton of money, but we need you to take like a year and a half off. You got to tour a little bit. You got to do some stuff. So boom, now you're a professional musician. So we need to think about, so wow, what does that mean? What does your day-to-day turn into? How do you pay your bills? How do you balance rehearsal and running your business? Because you have a business if you're a professional musician. So CC, I know you did that a little bit on the West Coast. So what's it like to do the political part where you're networking and going to parties, but you're also working, but you're running your business? And what was that like for you?
Well, so I won't say that I've taken off for about a year and a half to do any special projects. Mine have been gigs to gigs, but I've done a lot of freelancing, and I still do a lot of freelancing. And so, depending on how much runway you have, meaning how much preparation time you have, whether it's a month or two from now, or whether it's next weekend, and you're being asked to cover, the important part is to prepare. So you want to know as much information as you can about that gig and get that set list as soon as possible, so you have the time to learn the songs. Not just that, but the version of the songs. That's very important. That's always like can be a
Oh,
train wreck when where you're just given the song,
Yeah.
And everybody's off learning different versions because there are different versions,
And different keys, right?
different keys,
That's the worst.
different artists that perform that. Assuming that they are you're doing cover tunes. But
Yeah.
yeah, those are all important. Obviously, understanding the logistics of where to go and what time to show up and all that is just very important so you can be prepared.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I appreciate you sharing that, and it's I've not had those experiences. I do freelancing and as you do. And it's weird. I mean, drummers are all usually, unless you're just phenomenal, drummers are always accompanying somebody. And organization and preparation, that's important to drummers. So like in a just a my typical drum set, if depending on the gig, I'm playing just like you have like a bunch of basses. I have a few different drum sets, and depending on the music and what the requirement is, I've got to take a drum set. There are 17 different things that I have to take out of cases and assemble before I can play. So preparation is paramount. If I forget the wrong thing, I can't play. And it's not anybody else's fault. Everybody expects I get as much time as all the other musicians. I don't get extra time because I'm a drummer. So preparation is really important. So we kind of avoid forgetting stuff. So we have little things that I know have my drummer buddies. We have ways that we organize things so that you can just grab all your stuff and run if you need to. Some of the things that we try to avoid, though, is just like reacting, like you said, not being prepared, not really thinking about stuff, things that we could. We all have the same amount of time. But I want to talk a little bit about things that as musicians we can avoid, things that maybe we can begin to like that we see in our day-to-day routine. If you start to see these things, these are things that you should really steer clear of. I kind of refer to them as organizational or preparational kryptonite. They just will just kill you and just stifle anything that you're doing. They're like about four things. Can you go over those for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So number one, we have not taking care of the instrument or maintaining your instrument in good working condition. Well, I actually have an example of this, and it was me. Recently, I've done a gig in which the fuse went out on my amp, and it went out on the first song on the gig.
Oh,
So,
oh,
fortunately, we had a sound man who actually ran me direct through the system, so I was still able to play. I could barely hear myself, but we were able to get through the gig, and we were able to pull it off.
mm-hmm.
So, it reminded me that I probably need to have some of those fuses on
Yes.
hand just in case. But I've got a bag, what I call my accessory bags. I've got cables in there, extra patch cords and
Mm-hmm.
so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you never know when things might go out. You just try to prepare as best you can.
Right. No, that's good. That's good. I've seen similar situations where people just don't. Uh, I mean, their instrument doesn't even have a case. I mean, they're just like, guy. One of my drummer buddies, he carries his stuff around the trunk of a car, and it's in the trunk of his car during the winter. It's like, dude, that's not a nice thing to do. I have a very special relationship with my instrument, so I wouldn't dream of not treating it the right way. So, not taking care of your instrument, very good. So, what else?
Yeah. So another one would be is not being organized. So we talked a bit about that, the importance of organization. I can't tell you the countless amount of times where I'm showing up to a gig and there's always somebody texting, "Hey, I'm running about a half an hour late," or even rehearsal, or
Mm-hmm.
they didn't take the time to learn the songs.
Mm-hmm.
Just something where some of the group is on one page and then some are not on the same page, and then yada yada yada. But very important, you want to stay as organized as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For each
Hmm.
for each gig, I
Yep.
use a calendar, and actually for the bands that I play with, they all have band calendars. So I'm able to, when I'm around a phone or a computer, the band calendars are different colors. So before I accept something permanently, I take a look at that band calendar and look at the different bands, and I've got to make sure that that's clear. And then in that calendar, I put what I'm supposed to wear, where it is. I mean, it's all just like just tips, and it could be a paper calendar as long as you're organized, as long as you have that information, right?
Yeah, whatever you need to do that works for you. And again, that may sound obvious, but there's some people out there that need to hear this. And I'm sure if you're listening to this and you're saying it's obvious, like, oh yeah, you know what, I've certainly run into that, or you may have been guilty of that yourself. So yeah,
I was guilty of that. I actually I lost a very nice church gig that I wanted because I wasn't organized. I insulted the church. I did a phenomenal job on the audition. I could tell they liked me. They said they liked me. It's like, oh, we gotta listen to these other guys, but no, you're the guy. You're the guy. They told me all this, and I screwed up. I mean, I gave them a date that I would be there. I messed up the dates. I called them the day before. Hey, what's up? And I haven't heard from you guys. And they're like, well, you told us you were going to be there next week. And I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be at another church this week. So it was embarrassing. And I know that was like the lightning strike that kind of like threw me out of the mix for that. But it was my fault, just not being
right,
organized. So
right.
what else you got?
So another one that kind of ties into this is you ever run into those musicians that are never check their emails or never check their text messages, and so that again it makes it difficult to keep everybody on the same page because you always have that one that says, "Oh, I didn't be checking my messages. Oh, I never got that. I never got that song. I
Or
never."
they check it
Yeah,
and they don't respond. It's like
yeah,
they look at it, just say, okay. You don't know if they checked it or not, right? And if you're the band leader and you're coordinating five people's schedules, you need to know if you can say yes to an engagement or not, right?
yeah. Very important because yeah, like you said, if you're the band leader, time is of the essence. It's important to respond right away because that coordination is at stake and they could actually lose the gig to somebody else.
Mhm.
So. And then the last one is really not practicing.
Oh,
That one seems like a no-brainer, but I see advanced musicians all the time where they're not didn't work on the songs and they show up and they don't know it, and that's just you can't get
yes.
around to that.
It is,
You know.
no, seriously, I've seen that and I hadn't really thought about until you said that, but it's almost like an overconfidence, like, yeah, no, it's actually, it's disrespectful to the other musicians who may have already practiced, right? Even if you're like a celebrity musician. The other thing, like with the practicing, is something that, believe it or not, you taught me. And you're not going to remember this, but it's envisioning how you want the gig to go. So I actually take about 15 minutes literally, before I walk out of my house. And I sit there and I think about how I want this to end, how I want to be perceived. All the way, when I'm heading toward the gig, as I'm going in, I'm kind of getting my head into this is how I want the performance to go. And I'll play these little games like, okay, so on solos or drum fills, I won't use 16th notes. So I do these little things. I have something that I'm going to do, something that I'm planning, and I envision how I want to go, how I want this to go. And it all goes like with the practice. When I'm practicing, I'm envisioning this is how I want this to go. But if you don't think about it, if you don't prepare and you don't think about how it's going to go, you're going to start running into that jitters thing. You're going to have
Absolutely.
anxiety. It's all that stuff we talked about. So even though this kind of seems like a one-off admin thing, this is directly tied to the other stuff that we've talked about before.
Yep, and
So
you'll hear me reharp on this about the importance of preparation because preparation leads to confidence. All day. If you're an advanced musician and you've never heard the song Mustang Sally and you show up on a gig and you don't know the song, I use that as an example because a lot of bands I play with they always want to play this song. I'm not sure why, but in any case, if you don't know the song, then you don't know the song. There's no way around it. You have to listen and you have to prepare. So.
yeah, that is true. When you said Mustang Sally, I was like, oh no, not Mustang Sally.
Yeah, yeah.
So you know what? But so this is kind of a heavy thing. But we don't want if like we're dropping a lot of stuff here, and it's not about bossing you around. It's not to insult our peers because there are people who are very skillful, who are kind enough to listen to us. It's about just thinking about this. And if you're a great musician, you might be able to get something from this. If you're a new musician, then you should certainly try to develop habits. I mean, think of it like if I were going to superimpose preparation onto something like your sock drawer preparation. If I put them next to each other, you could have a tumbled or disorganized sock drawer. You're still going to have the same amount of socks. It just takes you longer to find the socks, right?
Yeah.
But so it's not the end of the world. You don't need to like get all stressed out about it. But thinking about that analogy, what about those socks at the bottom of the drawer that you never see, that you never pay attention to? You have socks that you haven't worn for like 2 months because you're only picking the ones at the top that you see all the time. So if that's music that you would never think about because you're not organized enough to really get into your practice and working on your craft, it's really something to think about. So organization is the way forward. And we've got we like the actionable tips. We got some actionable tips for you. So can you help me to go through the actionable tips for this preparation podcast?
Absolutely. In addition to the ones that we mentioned about organization and so forth, number one, we is about managing your time.
Yeah.
Very very important. So we hear this a lot, how to not waste time and to make sure you're making the most out of your time. You could be a time stickler like me. Like I'm looking at my planner in front of me. I do time blocking because if you're like me and I have a lot of balls in the air and I'm trying to juggle, it's important to carve out time for each to move them forward. So I use a time blocking method, but maybe that's a little bit too rigid for a lot of people. But just making sure that you are being cognizant of everything that you've got going on and planning it in a timely manner. So if you have a a a freelance gig that you have maybe next week, let's just say,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that you are carving out enough time and giving yourself enough runway to actually work out the songs. I've got several one-off type gigs coming up, and I'm balancing several, so I'm
Yes.
putting them in the mix. So, yep.
Yeah. And the better you are at balancing them, the more skillful you become and the more those that you get. You are as being a good steward with your time, you're rewarded with more time. So it's a really smart thing to do, right? So for me, I'm not quite as organized as you are, but the way I achieve that task is I have a certain time. So like usually Sunday between 7 and 8 ish or so, it is my time to look at all of my calendars, to update the website, to do all the little things that I need to do. I may not do everything, but that 7 to 8 time frame, I'll even set an alarm to remind myself to get organized. And that helps not just with music, that helps with a whole bunch of stuff in life, It forces me to like, okay, this is what I got to do between 7 and 8. So time, that is very important. And I'm going to kind of look into the time blocking thing. That sounds like a cool idea.
Yeah, I've tried all different kinds of methods, but so number two, reign over your technology. Will,
Okay.
tell us a bit about
Yeah.
this.
So I'm an IT guy from a former life. And I mean, reigning over something means like directing or like having a certain amount of authority over it. And some of us are like not the best with tech. So we're not bossing you around. We're not forcing you to use technology. It's like whatever technology is available to you, what we're saying is to leverage that technology. If you're a Facebook person, then and those are the limits of your technology, then just do it right. We already talked about as far as email and text messages are concerned, make sure you're being responsible with those. Don't start a social media type of image that you can't live up to. Don't start doing something that's going to take away from your music because you've got to maintain this massive social media thing, unless you're going to hire somebody to do it for you. But it's just using technologies. Like 2 tips. I don't want to really endorse any products specifically, but as far as scheduling, I use an app to do the scheduling. And it's like really simple. I put it in one place, it gets broadcast out to like 2 or 3 places, and it's a way that I can keep track of where I'm supposed to be, and other people can who want to watch me or follow me, they can easily follow me. And then the other thing I keep track of is like my mileage in my car. So I got to carry a lot of equipment. This app that's on my phone, it just knows where I'm going. So wherever, I don't even tell it, it just kind of like monitors where I go. Okay, so I mean, I've got Big Brother following me, but if you got a mobile phone, that's happening anyway. But so it just follows me. So at the end of the tax year, I can like slim down and identify certain locations and print a report and give that to the IRS, and I can claim all the mileage that I get for rehearsals and for gigs. So that's just a couple of really quick, easy examples where we can leverage technology if we use technology. If you don't use technology, there's no reason to fear technology. Ask somebody, and if there's something that we could do to help, there probably is going to be a podcast on technology itself. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah. All right. Great. Thank you for sharing. Or if you don't want to pay for anything, I just use my iPhone calendar. Call it a day.
There you
It
go. There
works.
you
Yeah.
go.
It provides alerts and everything. Okay. So number three, the last one is to be professional.
Yeah.
This is
That's a
well.
whole
This is
bunch of different things. A whole bunch of
yeah.
it's all the stuff we're saying. So
Hmm.
don't be that show up on time, right?
Right.
Don't don't ever never say negative or terrible things about your bandmates, whether you're in the band or not. Don't say things that you wouldn't say if they weren't standing behind you, right? Make the band that you're in, make that the priority. Don't sit in the band and say, well, in this other band we did. Nobody wants to hear that. You're playing with cat. You're sitting there. You obviously want to be there. Make that band your priority. Um, what about listening? How important is that, CC?
Listening is important, and I would also add that being professional, because we talk a lot about what not to do, but also what to do
Mm-hmm.
is show up with a smile, show up with a positive attitude, and
Yeah.
yes, uh, know the music and have a good time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Be likable.
Yes, yes, be that person. I mean, how many people? How many times we're not naming names, but how many times have you performed with somebody who's very skillful, but their personality is just such that you think, I don't really ever need to perform with this person anymore, even though they play really well. Some people just are not pleasant to be around. So
Yeah.
you don't,
Yep.
So being pleasant, as you said. For me personally, I don't recommend using drugs and alcohol when you're performing. They kind of alter your sense of reality. Some people say it helps them to play better. Um, I believe that it helps you to, it creates the illusion that you probably think you're playing better than what you are. So I'm not real good with that stuff. So it's just my personal recommendation. Um, Here's something we don't talk about this very much. Don't hide from the IRS. Okay, so if you get a corporate gig and they're paying you guys like $3,500, they're going to write somebody a check. They're not going to pay you in tips. They're going to write somebody a check. They're going to give that check to a person. That person is going to give you the money. The person who got the $3,500 check, they're going to say, I gave you a quarter of it. So be upfront. Tell the IRS. Keep track of that stuff. So that's being professional. That just goes along with it. And we don't need to get into stories about musicians or actors who've avoided tax. And didn't Wesley Snipes end up going to jail for not paying taxes? So
Yeah, I believe so.
yeah, so don't do that.
Okay.
And finally, here's something that I kind of got into, and it actually created some growth in who I met and how I began to work with other people and meet other people, and it opened up doors for me, gave me opportunities I didn't have. Take a look at professional organizations for artists. I mean, I joined one specifically for drums, but the Jazz Alliance in your community, or if there's some other social thing or some other professional organization that you can benefit from, as a musician that you can either receive or give resources to. Those are other things that you could do. So that goes well into professionalism. So that's all I got. So you want to do the wrap up for us?
Yeah, so I think we've given folks enough to chew and bite off to work on. Again, with these actionable tips that we're providing in the shows, you want to work at them every day. That we have to be reminded, and so you want to work at it every day, and that's how you really get to that confidence and uh, getting on the best path possible. So
Right.
today we dropped some nuggets about being organized, the importance of managing your time, and also the use of technology
Yep.
to stay organized and to be professional. You want to be as prepared as possible. So
Mhm.
I hope you got a lot out of today's show. Stay tuned for our next show. We promise to bring you some great tips that's going to help you to become your best musician self. Again, I'm CC Bass,
And this is Wil Cameron.
and we are here for you.
Okay,
Stay
we'll
tuned.
see you
See you
next
next
time.
time.
All right, thanks.